Back in the days of powdered wigs, there was a man named Carl Linnaeus who was Swedish, and he was a taxonomist and a botanist. So taxonomy is the study of organizing living things into categories, and a botanist is somebody who studies plants. So he went around studying plants. He was also later became a doctor, and he started studying plants and writing books about plants. Somewhere along the way, he developed a naming system for plants that became called the binomial system. Binomial, just bi means two, like a bicycle has two wheels, and nomial name, so it's a two-name system. Now the binomial system is used to name living organisms to help us understand everything we need to know about that organism, where it falls into categories. But we use binomial systems all the time, we just don't think about it. For example, if you had two Susans in your class and you were discussing Susan told you something, someone might ask, which Susan? And you said Susan Smith, right? So that tells us which Susan. So this is a family name and then that person's name. And that's a little bit more individual than the binomial system, but it's a little bit more like the way we describe cars. So if I said something was a Ford Focus, you would know what kind of car I was talking about, right? Or if I said a Ford F-150. So the two names tell us what we need to know about that organism, so that we know that one organism from everything else, right? A Ford F-150 tells me it's a truck and not a car, but a Ford Focus tells me that it is a car. And so we can start to classify people or cars or living things by having two names, and that gives us a lot more information than just a one-name system. So Linnaeus used this binomial system at first, and then he decided that he wanted to be able to classify things more specifically beyond those two levels, and the binomial nomenclature is going to include the genus and the species on the bottom part of my list here. But above that, he added family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, and domain. And domain is the broadest category, and species is the most specific category. The domains are limited to just 3 domains that we have discovered so far. So there is the eukarya, the archaea, and the bacteria. Now there's going to be a separate video on the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, but these two are going to be prokaryotes, and the eukaryote is going to be the eukarya. And humans are going to be eukaryotes. I use a mnemonic device to remember these classifications. So it's King Philip came over from Great Spain. Or I've also heard King Philip came over for good spaghetti. And you'll notice that I don't have a D in my mnemonic device. Domain is very often not considered part of the true classification system spelled out by Linnaeus. And you'll notice if you look in the book that it says that there are 7 categories, and then it proceeds to list 8, which is really confusing because they don't really explain why that is. But generally domain is such a broad category that it's not considered officially part of the Linnaean system. And actually several of these were developed after Linnaeus's time, and so are not part of his original theory.